So I end up writing a lot of that, which is just fine. I enjoy doing that, but it is funny. It gets me thinking a lot. Again, my friend asked me about what I was up to and what I was writing and doing. It gets me thinking about what it is that I am actually doing. And because the deadline, the prose gets in the up at the front all the time. However, after this question, I thought, what if I were to make arbitrary deadlines and then in my own delusional mind, make them as real, and what I generate as much poetry. So that's what I'm currently up to. And along those lines, I was thinking about a poet named Evan Boland. I don't know if people are familiar with their work. I know that Kama and Izzy Shockey were out there at the Celtic Festival in July, and actually I think Todd and maybe Ken McIntosh also heard part of this lecture where I was talking about Evan Boland in July. She is one of my absolute favorite poets, and I've just been on a big kick of her work. She teaches out at Stanford. She's originally from Ireland, though, lived in the southern part of Dublin for a long time. She's just a fascinating person, I think, skill-wise. I mean, she is, as far as thinking about the tradition of Irish literature and who's the big hondo writing now that's an Irish poet, I'd say it's Evan Boland. You think about Yeats, Patrick Kavanagh, and those sort of people in the last 100 years, and she's right up there. And but of course, that wasn't always the case. She was fairly, normal, modest sort of background growing up, kind of the suburbs or the outskirts of Dublin. And in fact, she has a terrific book about that called Becoming a Woman Poet. And she talks about when she was a teenager, I guess probably 17, 18 years old, she had kind of a job in a department store, and that's in Dublin, in the main downtown. And I don't know how many folks have been to Dublin or seen the city there, but right in the central part, of course, it's obviously a lot of tourist area, and there's just statues everywhere, and they're terrific statues. I've had a blast seeing these statues, but they'll have Jim Larkin raising his hands in this sort of way, this huge, 10-foot statue, Jim Larkin raising his hands to lift the workers, out of English, exploitation and things like that. So all around her was this sort of history that was preserved in this very dramatic form, and yet here she was, this kind of young person wanting to be a part of the active life of what's going on. And she was just, again, absolutely brilliant genius of a person. And she managed to kind of work her way through this history that, while there's a rich literary culture, and certainly, for centuries and centuries, despite English, exploitation and whatnot, this has existed. It hasn't necessarily been one where you see a lot of women, at least again in the current stage, in the canon. So that you get Yeats, you get Kavanagh, you get some really interesting characters. But she felt that it was something that wasn't necessarily for her, and especially being also not, there are exceptions, but usually they're people with money, but being kind of a working class person. So anyway, I think her stuff is just terrific. So I'm thinking about that notion of becoming a poet, and I think I'll read one of her poems to kick off my poetry section for the evening. But she has one called Outside History. It's actually part of a 12-part poem. It's the last one. There are outsiders, always, these stars, these iron inklings of an Irish January, whose light happened thousands of years before our pain did. They've always been outside history. They keep their distances. Under them remains a place where you found you were human, and a landscape in which you are mortal, and a time to choose between them. I have chosen. Out of myth into history I move to be part of that ordeal, whose darkness is only now reaching me from those fields, those rivers, those roads clotted as firmaments with the dead. How slowly they die as we kneel beside them, whisper in their ear, and we are too late. We are always too late. You can clap for Evan Boland if you want, yeah.